Unafraid Show Week 8 college football recap. Man, so another debate. Who's number one again? And this debate should be settled, right? But no, because logos are dominating the conversation. Alabama and USC are both fan bases are sad right now. They don't even know how to contain themselves. They are upset. Like, what the hell is going on? And I got to tell you who I believe is going to make the college football playoff from the SEC. And we have teams like Notre Dame, Kansas State, LSU, who are absolute creeps right now. And I'm not talking about weirdos. I'm talking about creeping up into the college football playoff conversation. And nobody's talking about them as much as they should be right now. And of course, Ohio State conversation. The Michigan Wolverines, where do they turn right now? And is Kirby Smart behaving right? And so is Mario Cristobal and Dan Lanning. So we got so much to talk about today. And the first thing up, so Alabama has 2 losses. How the hell did they beat Georgia? How did this team that looks like this the last 3 weeks, how the hell did they beat Georgia? Because it is inexplicable at this point in time. But before we get into that, as we get into the games, as always, I got to give you my 5 best performing teams of week 8 in college football. The first team up. Oh, people are not going to want to hear this team because it's not one of those desired playoff logos. It's not one of those logos that anybody expected to be in the college football playoff conversation, and that is Kurt Singetti's Indiana Hoosiers. They played Nebraska, and we played this game up a lot, how important this was for both teams, and we were 100% right about that. However, Indiana had other plans. They were like, yeah, we know it's important. But it's SmackDown City. 56-7. This was a game where, this was domination from start to finish, but Indiana did get some bad news in this game, which could turn their whole season on its heels. Their quarterback is going to be out for an extended period of time. That means everything's in jeopardy. The second team up, they played on a Friday night. That's the Oregon Ducks. They played versus Purdue. And remember, there's a whole video of everybody out here talking about how big of a trap game this is and everything else. Well, Oregon was not falling into the trap, not even a little bit. 35-0 over Purdue on the road, short turnaround on it after an emotional high win, a field storming win against Ohio State. And then they did not have a letdown at all, which is a good sign for the Ducks. Number 3, a team that we have not talked about, I don't believe, at any point in time this season, and that is the Duke Blue Devils. They had a 42-21 win over Florida State. Big ups to Malik Murphy. Big ups to Mike Elko and Manny Diaz. They're doing a good job over there. But why is that important? Because Duke is now 6-1. 6-1. So this is more of a cumulative share of love for them as opposed to just beating Florida State, which is a bad football team right now. The fourth team up, the Georgia Bulldogs. Oh, they went down to Austin and just literally strangled Texas. They strangled the life out of Texas, and now it has made all of us question Texas. Now, Texas was one of them teams that I thought was elite and that I believed that I trusted. Well, this offensive line showed that they couldn't be trusted against Georgia, and they got overwhelmed. 30-15. Good job, Georgia Bulldogs. Next team up. Oh, them Colorado Buffaloes are back, baby. Travis Hunter was out again. So he's missed a lot of time in the last 2 weeks, but it didn't matter. 34-7 win over Arizona in Tucson. Huge win on the road. And we really got to start giving Deion Sanders some flowers right now. I know that there was a bunch of talk in the offseason, but I believe that when you make noise and when you criticize things that people do, when they do things right, you got to give them some credit. You do. Next team up, the UCLA Bruins. And I know that this is 6 teams. I'm violating the rules, but you had their head coach, Deshaun Foster, get his first win in conference against Rutgers, 35-32. And it was their first game over 20 points. And they only have one less win than USC right now. So UCLA fans, they're like, well, we ain't taking no gruff from anybody right now. All right, so those were the 5 best teams who performed in week 8 of college football. Now it's time for the worst teams of week 8. Now, I'm telling you, we will not talk about Florida State. We will not talk about Florida State, who's now 1-6 after their 23-16 loss to Duke. We shouldn't talk about Florida State, but they're 1-6 and Duke is 6-1. Mike Norvell, first coach to lose to an FCS school over at Florida State. First ever loss to Duke in program history. He has 3 0-3 starts in 5 seasons. And this 1-6 in year 5, the worst Florida State record since 1975. And that's the year before Bobby Bowden arrived. And 8-year contract extension, $84 million. I'm just saying, these are just facts, people. But now it's on to the worst teams of college football in week 8. First up, the Oklahoma Sooners. They lost to South Carolina 35-9. 35-9. Everybody's been scoring on South Carolina. What is going on out there, Brent Venables? I know that you have a true freshman starting at quarterback. I know that your other quarterback that you thought was going to be all-world, Jackson Arnold, is not performing at the level that you would have expected. But it's not just them. It's also a combination of the offense. And in this case, you couldn't get stops against South Carolina. I'm just saying. Next up, Alabama. The Alabama Crimson Tide in their 24-17 loss to Tennessee. And you might be saying, George, they played another ranked team. Why are you tripping? On the worst of the week? Yes. Ask Alabama fans, was this the worst of the week? And they will let you know, yes, this was the worst of the week. And it's not so much that they lost. It's the fact that their offense looks disjointed. Nico Iamaleava was not playing great football because they had at least 3 more touchdowns that were missed wide open. This could have been a 45-17 game. That's the problem there. It's not just that they lost by 7 points. It's that they didn't look good on defense or on offense. And we'll get to more of that. Number 3, USC. They lost to Maryland. They found a way to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, 29-28. Maryland came back storming in the last, minute of the game and won? Oh, another heartbreaking loss. And all 4 of USC's losses, I think, are by 14 points or less. No, I'm talking about cumulatively. Not each wins. No. They are losing heartbreakers. And their fan base, their heart is broken right now. Number 4, Texas. Yes, this was the worst of the week. I know that you were playing Georgia. But you were the number 1 team in the nation. And you were down, 23-0. Same way that Georgia was to Alabama. You just got overwhelmed. Quinn Ewers was overwhelmed. Then you tried to bring in Arch Manning when it was 20 or 23-0, thinking that was going to change things, putting him in that spot. That wasn't going to work. You bring Quinn Ewers back. You get a couple touchdowns. Your fans throw things on the field, everything in between, but you got overwhelmed. And that is a scary proposition for Texas fans going forward because now it's like a boxer. When you get knocked out, now all of a sudden you know it's possible to get knocked out, and that changes life. The last team, Iowa, they played Michigan State. Michigan State has been a doormat all year. But you know what? Big ups to Aiden Childs. Big ups to their team, their head coaches, their assistant coaches, because they have this team still fighting and they are building things the right way over there. And this Iowa team, multiple personalities, 32-20. What are you doing? But they still have no offense, though, even with either personality. Because the Minnesota and Washington games, you win those. look great. Offense still whack, but you win. And then you have the Michigan State, Iowa State games. You're up and down on offense. This is confusing. You need to figure this out, Iowa. This is not good. But there were so many things that went on this week in the world of college football. And you guys, I want you guys to like, subscribe, get notifications, and tell a friend. So I'm going to give you a second. So if you're watching this on Twitter, go click the YouTube link, subscribe, give it a thumbs up because this is the best college football show around. And I need you guys to share it so we can continue to grow because last week's episode was unbelievable and it's because of you guys. And if you're watching it on YouTube, share, do all those things, and leave a thumbs up and leave a comment. Leave a comment in the chat. Leave a comment down the bottom so the algorithm loves us. All right, first game of the week and team that we have to talk about, the Miami Hurricanes, and they played against Louisville, 52-45. Now, Louisville talked all of that. Oh, wait, listen, we're going to put an end to all that Miami stuff. We're going to put an end to Miami stuff. But first of all, how in the hell was Miami a part of another controversial ACC headquarters call? This is their third one of the season. It was against Virginia Tech. And then and now against Louisville. They've had so many opportunities. These are the cardiac hurricanes. And eventually, if you walk on the edge too close, you will fall off. That's just the truth. Because in the last 3 games, Miami's defense has given up 34 to Virginia Tech, 38 to Cal, and now 45 to Louisville. That is 100% alarming. But the question is, can you win a championship? Can you win a national championship with a defense like that? Ask Lincoln Riley. Ask Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma. Ask Lincoln Riley at USC if you can win a championship with defenses that are giving up these types of numbers. And it's not like you are going against the most high-powered offenses in the country in Virginia Tech, Cal, and Louisville. You're just giving up points all over the place. And that's not going to work. But Miami fans will tell you, well, there's 2 factions of Miami fans. There are the realistic ones who understand that this is a problem, right? That understand that this is something to be not nervous, but at least concerned about. And then there are the fans. We're sensational. We got Cam Ward. We're winning the championship. So now, fam, you're gonna have to play some defense. And they're like, well, our defense is opportunity bound. Like I said, ask Lincoln Riley. Don't work like that. But Cam Ward, though, dude is sensational. And they don't win this game against Louisville without him. There are probably max 3 to 4 quarterbacks in college football who could do what he has been doing. You got like Shedeur Sanders, maybe Dylan Gabriel, Cam Ward himself, maybe John Mateer over at Washington State, maybe. That's what you got. He's just magical. He's been making plays all over the place, and it's been fantastic. He was 21 for 32 for 319 yards and 4 touchdowns. And now, to Louisville's credit, they did put up a good fight. They didn't disappoint. They told everybody that they were going to show up and show everybody that they not only could hang with hang with Miami, but they believed that they could beat them. And they damn near did. They just couldn't get enough stops to get it done. Now, the MVP, though, for this Miami Hurricanes team is the ACC Command Center. Because if that game if that Hail Mary game, if that goes differently, if the Virginia Tech game, if that goes different, well, that was the Hail Mary game. That goes differently, we're looking at a whole different situation for them because they've gotten favorable calls. It was the Cal game. Yes, it was the Cal game where they did not end up getting a helmet-to-helmet called, a targeting call, when that should have obviously been called on that. And you guys know I'm not a targeting guy. So, yeah. So that's the Miami team. I know I had Florida State on the brain for a second. 52-45. Now, next game up, Georgia versus Texas, 30-15. This was an absolutely sloppy game. Sloppy game. Now, are these teams really, really good? Yes. Did Georgia's defense show up as exceptional last night? Yes. But when each team got at least 3 turnovers, I think you got 3 from Georgia, 4 from Texas. This ain't what you want, fam. This is not what you want at all. Neither one of those teams can be happy with their offensive performances. Because Carson Beck nor Quinn Ewers, neither one of them looked like first-round picks last night. Neither one of them. Carson Beck, 23 for 41 for 175 yards, no touchdowns, 3 picks. And we're not talking about tips, where a guy should have caught it and then it goes to the defense. No, these are your fault picks. And then he actually had another pick that was dropped too. Come on, man. And then Quinn Ewers, 25 for 43, 211 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 pick. He had another 2 or 3 picks that were in Georgia people's hands, Georgia defenders' hands, that ended up on the ground. This was not high-level quarterback play at all from 2 dudes that we know can play good football. But they weren't playing good football yesterday. And then that got me to thinking, all right, so Texas was one of those teams that I've been stamping on the floor. After their Michigan win, I was like, this is the number 1 team in the country. And then when Alabama beat Georgia, Alabama jumped Texas. And I was like, oh, how could this happen? This is ridiculous. Well, let's take a look. Because as the season has unfolded, let's look at this Texas resume, please. Now, on the field, clearly they are talented. There's no shortage of talent. But let's just look at who are their best wins and how they've performed. Their best wins are against an unranked 3-loss Michigan team. Yes, it was on the road in the big house, and they absolutely dominated, which they should against a 3-loss team that is setting the forward pass back. And then you got 3-loss Oklahoma as well. So now Texas's best wins are over unranked teams. That's it. They have not, aside from this Georgia team, Texas has 0. Actually, they didn't win this game, so it don't even matter. Texas has 0 top 25 teams. They have only played 1 team this season that is currently ranked. As they played Colorado State, Michigan, UTSA, Louisiana Monroe, Mississippi State, Oklahoma, and Georgia. That's what they got. And on the way out, the only teams that they may have that could be, well, actually, we will see what happens next week. Well, after this upcoming polls come out and everything, Vanderbilt maybe. Florida ain't going to be ranked. Arkansas is not going to be ranked. Kentucky's not going to be ranked. And Texas A&M should be ranked. So they could finish the season with 1 ranked win if they beat Texas A&M. And that's a maybe. So think about that. They're a team that doesn't have, honestly, that shouldn't really have a huge margin for error, because when we look at the resume on the back end, if we take the logo off the jersey, remember that, take the logo off the jersey. If I told you that a team with 1 loss or 2 losses finished the entire season with either 1 ranked win, and that's over Texas A&M, or 0 ranked wins and losses to Georgia and Texas A&M. Other than that, 0 ranked wins. What would you think about them? If I put that on BYU, what would you think? If I put that on Illinois, what would you think? Exactly. We got to take the logos off and really be honest about what teams have been put on the paper, because I understand we can't leave Texas out of the playoff. That's the internal feeling. That's not what's actually That's not what should actually be governing our decisions. We can't let emotion and nostalgia and all of these other things govern what actually should be done. What is the right thing to be done? Um, Now this Georgia defense, they looked ridiculous. Everything Texas did looked difficult. It looked hard. They looked like that they had no margin for error. None. I mean, short passes were contested. Deep passes were unavailable. Running the ball was hard. Stretching the defense, everything was hard. It looked like Georgia was playing defense with 14 dudes. But now the problem is for Georgia, their offense is okay at best. There are multiple times this season that we've looked at Carson Beck and we're like, he cool. He's playing cool. But and he's getting a lot of hype. But truth be told, Stetson Bennett was playing better. That's just the reality. Completely underrated quarterback. Completely underrated quarterback. Now Carson has all the tools. But this running game for Georgia is not putting up the stats that it should. The passing game is not as consistent. You got drop balls and everything else. This ain't a good look, fam. Not a good look. But now the Texas team, though, just want to point out one last stat about Georgia's defense. They forced Texas to 1-12 on third downs. 1-12. 3 fumbles, an interception, and 2 turnovers on downs. What? They put him in an absolute headlock. Get over here. Or one of them old school whoopings. Get your ass over here. Hey, this is one of them down south, go pick your switch whoopings. All right, next game up. Alabama versus Tennessee, 24-17. 24-17, Alabama versus Tennessee. And I got to be honest, neither one of these teams look particularly good. Neither one of them. I don't know what to make heads or tails out of this Tennessee program because they are only one loss. You're looking at a team that we have seen many, many times, and now we're confused because their lone loss, because they are 6-1, and their lone loss was to Arkansas. And now we're saying, okay, you had a slip up and a hiccup. But it's Tennessee's offense that is the problem. Their defense is doing a pretty good job. They are not allowing people. The highest point total that they've given up is on the season. We're talking 17 points. That's 19 to Arkansas. And then 17-17, 15, 10, 3, and 0. So this Tennessee defense is locking it down. Their offense, on the other hand, is not doing its job. There were probably 3 times in the game. Wide open touchdown plays were missed. Now, on one hand, Tennessee fans, you can feel good. You can feel excited because you're like, if we can get Nico comfortable in his redshirt freshman year, if we can get him comfortable, if we can get him on the page, because there were times he made some plays. Then there were some times you're just like, oh, avert your eyes. But that's the life of a quarterback. And I understand the pressure of the position. I got 2 sons who play. There's a lot of pressure. And is it always fair? No. Do you take blame you shouldn't? No. But you do get a lot of praise that you probably shouldn't either. Just saying. But this Alabama team, Lord have mercy, Kalen Deboer is getting the full effect of what it's like to be Alabama's head coach, baby. Oh, he knows to a max what it's like to be the Alabama head coach already. He's only been on the job like 9 months. 9 months, 10 months. And he's already under fire. But people are trying to compare this to Nick Saban's first season in 2007 when they lost to an FCS team. But then when you look at the truth, Alabama was on probation or just coming off of probation, a big penalty. Roster was not in any type of good shape. But now Alabama's roster, very talented quarterback, and everything else. So, but now I expected, and I got to be honest, I expected Kalen Deboer, who I have a lot of respect for as a head coach, think that he's a master tactician, strategist, everything else. There is a lot of concern surrounding Jalen Milroe to me because we saw what Michael Penix was able to do at the University of Washington. He went from a kid at Indiana who threw it decently, ran the ball a lot more, to a true pocket passer who could run when he was at the University of Washington. And I think that we expected there to be a significant uptick in Jalen Milroe's running of the football and in this offense. But what we're watching is I want you to go back and look at the tape, look at the game. Whenever Jalen Milroe ends up under pressure, and Tennessee figured this out at the end of the game, toward the, like the third, fourth quarter of the game. Anytime that there was pressure, in terms of he looked at it at the line of scrimmage, Tennessee's walked up and they're in spread. They got four wide outs out in the back or spread out and empty. And Tennessee is bringing more than Tennessee is blitzing more than Alabama can block. The first thing that Jalen Milroe is going to do is going to throw a fade ball. That's a 50-50 ball at best. 50-50 ball at best. And do you know what ended up happening? Balls end up on the ground. Balls end up on the sideline. Everything. So it's basically a wasted down a lot of times. And Tennessee figured that out, and they kept bringing it. And he just kept throwing jump balls. Just saying. And then you had Alabama's five-star true freshman wide receiver, Caleb Odom, after the game. He retweeted tweets that were like, oh man, I can't believe that they threw it to Ryan Williams instead of our 6'5" freshman wide receiver. Who you gonna throw it to? The taller guy? You gonna throw it to the other guy? Just the simple fact. Now I want you guys to. Now I don't want to. It's easy to overanalyze things and to make more out of things that is not really there. But I want you guys to pay attention to what's going on at the University of Alabama. Because, what was it, 2 weeks ago, their star player, Malachi Moore, their star, remember in that Vandy game, he's kicking the ball, he's doing, refusing to come out of the game, all of those sorts of things. And I said, if there was not some sort of penalty that the team felt good about, that things would start to, that there would be more incidences on the team and things would start to fracture. Well, these Caleb Odom tweets are another thing because neither one of those things would have been done with Nick Saban. And that doesn't mean that you have to run your program the exact same way, but I'm telling you, as a player who's been in these locker rooms, this is scary time for Alabama. It doesn't look like much, but if that was done in public, I can't even imagine the griping that's going on in private. And those are things that fracture a team. So Kalen Deboer has to nip this in the butt and get these things in check. He has to. Because it is different coaching at Fresno State, coaching at Washington, and coaching at Alabama. There's a totally different place. And all of those, the other two places are great universities, really good football programs. But the expectation, regardless of whether it's real or not, it's unfair. But it's also unrealistic. And but football is religion down there. It is. And Kalen Deboer is finding out real quick. And this team, they're disciplined. It is not where it needs to be. And I am concerned about this Alabama offense. I am concerned about Jalen Milroe because he doesn't look comfortable in the pass game with Alabama. And I went and trolled the message boards for a little bit. Alabama wants Jalen Milroe benched. And granted, that's crazy talk. Absolute crazy talk. Because he has been a lifesaver in this offense. He has saved the day so many times. His wins above replacement is very high. Do you know how many players in the country can come in and win games that he's already won this year? There's a lack of confidence going on right now. You can see it in his face. And Kalen Deboer, as a quarterback coach, as an offensive genius, mastermind, he's got to get him figured out. Has to. Has to. Because this is a major problem. Now, on the Tennessee side, their offense has been struggling as well. And neither one of these teams can win a championship at this point in time. Neither one. Nope. Nope. And Nico Iamaleava, he's been driving Tennessee fans crazy because and I would say expectation is the thing that drives disappointment. And their expectations were crazy high for this season, and they should have been. I had him as one of as going to the Heisman Trophy ceremony. I didn't think he was going to win, but going to the Heisman Trophy ceremony, and that's not happening this season at all. But he did come through with a couple of big plays, big throws, big runs when it mattered the most, especially the go-ahead touchdown. Magnifique. Good job. Now, it did get me to thinking what this SEC, championship and potential playoff picture could be. Because you got Texas A&M. Texas A&M, who is on top of the conference right now, they could end up as the best team in the SEC. Number one team, they are at the top of the standings right now, along with LSU. But here's the thing. Texas A&M still plays Texas and LSU. So the loser of those games gets bumped out of the way. But then you could end up with LSU in it if they beat Texas A&M. Georgia still has a shot. Vandy has a shot. Missouri has a shot. All of those teams, think about this. All of those teams have better shots than Alabama right now because the standings are Texas A&M, LSU, Georgia, Tennessee, Missouri, Texas, Vanderbilt, and Alabama. Now there's going to be a lot of clamoring and conversation because it started. It started already this last week about, hey, even if Alabama does lose this Tennessee game, does this actually put them out of the college football playoff conversation? Dude, they want Alabama in there so bad. And in truth, Alabama may not even should be ranked right now with what they're putting on the field. Think about that. They may not even, when you look at the top 25 and the Unafraid Show top 25, do we believe that what Alabama has put on the field, do we believe that they're better than Clemson right now? Iffy, right? Forget the big name, Clemson. Do you think they can beat Kansas State right now? We think that they can beat SMU? Oh, of course they can beat. No, you're not sure. Do you think they can beat Boise? Boise is essentially Vanderbilt with a little bit worse quarterback, but way better of a running back. Just saying. Do you think that they can beat Iowa State? No, no, no. Pitt? No. Come on, man. How about this? Let's put Alabama versus Colorado. Oh, George, don't be outrageous. Am I really being outrageous, though? Just saying. All right, next game up. Another team that is big sad right now. The USC Trojans. They're playing against Maryland. Well, they played against Maryland. Lost 29-28. Another heartbreaker. Another heartbreaker. Dude, they cannot take much more. Their fans on the message board are absolutely reeling. They are, them and UCLA are tied for, 17th in the Big Ten. Tied for 17th. Only Purdue has a worse conference record at 0-4. UCLA is 1-4. USC is 1-4 in conference as well. So their last 3 games, they lost to Maryland by 1 at the end of the game. They lost in overtime to Penn State by 3. They lost to Minnesota late by 7. And they lost to Michigan on the last play of the game. And so they've lost by 3, 7, that makes 10. 13 when you take the Penn State game, 14 when you include this 1 point. So they've lost 4 games by a total of 14 points. And now the question that they're all asking is, why can't Lincoln Riley close? Why can't he close? Okay. I talked about this last week. USC is at an absolute crossroads. Crossroads. They were 3-3 coming into this game. And I believe that going 3-4 could cause a fracture on this team that can't be fixed this season and will actually bleed over into next season. Because people in general on the outside, fans, everything, they're going to look at the win-loss record about whether this team is improving and moving in the right direction. I told you it takes 21 days to build a habit. So it takes 21 football games to fully change your attitude, mentality, physicality, toughness, playing defense, everything. It takes 21 games for y'all to for everybody in your program to fully buy into it. That's damn near 2 full seasons. And USC is 7 games into that right now. But if this team mails in the rest of the season against Rutgers this week, because they play on a short week, at Washington, Nebraska, at UCLA, and Notre Dame. If you see any of those games as blowouts, particularly the Notre Dame game at the end or the Washington or Nebraska game, either one of those games, if those turn into blowouts, it is starting the 21 days over. That's why I said they run the risk of that, because it is people's human nature to, when the wins aren't coming, and especially when you're trying to change a culture like Lincoln Riley is attempting to change. He brought in D'Anton Lynn as defensive coordinator. It's clearly working despite what the stats say, because they play with a different level of physicality. When you turn on the tape, there's a different level of physicality, a different level of energy, and more often players are in the right place. Like in their run fits, they're in the right gaps, they're doing the right things. But the questions and the problems with this USC team are about depth. Number one, because they've lost some players to injury on defense. They lost Gentry to linebacker to Bear Alexander, he decided to redshirt. They lost somebody else on the defensive line and an already thin team. Now, the question is the recruiting, because Lincoln is going to have trouble he's going to have his work cut up for him, keeping this recruiting class together, because they are, number 10 right now on 247. It is going to be very, very difficult, because teams are going to be negatively recruiting, because the first 2 years of Caleb Williams, he was phenomenal. He carried this team on his back. And Miller Moss, despite what people will tell you, is not doing a bad job. Like, fans will actually tell you, Miller needs to be benched. What are we talking about? We're talking about a dude who went 34 for 50 for 336, 3 touchdowns and a pick. He's not a mobile quarterback, but he's actually doing a pretty damn good job, I believe, with what I'm seeing. USC just has to stop making penalties, catch the ball when it matters, and understand that you're building something. You are not going to, like, the whole, we're just gonna reload real quick and make the college football playoff. No, it doesn't work that well. It doesn't work that way. They can't run the football. They ran the ball for a total of 82 yards. And then you got the people, let's fire Lincoln Riley. Listen, USC is not Texas A&M. Texas A&M sent Jimbo Fisher home with like $80 million. USC, who their fans have been crying about their NIL, which from all reports from the inside have said their NIL and their collective is doing a good job and is where it needs to be right now. So ain't nobody writing no $88 million check, fam. Ain't nobody writing after next year, a $77 million check. If you want Lincoln Riley gone, you better hope that an NFL team comes calling, or Florida comes calling after the season, or anybody comes calling after the season. That's what you better hope if you want him gone. But remember, Every time y'all fire somebody who stinks, now all of a sudden on your message board, oh man, maybe we should have gave Clay Helton some more time. Maybe we listen. That Auburn, USC, stuck in the same cycle right now. This is why, and Lincoln Riley was proven that he was a good coach at Oklahoma. He was also given the keys to a Ferrari. He didn't have to go under the hood and rebuild that thing at Oklahoma. He just had to keep it going. This is a rebuild job at USC because USC right now is turning into what Nebraska was prior to Matt Rule showing up. 7 consecutive losing seasons, and they had a losing season his first year. He just didn't have the luxury of bringing Caleb Williams with him. And that masked a lot of what was where USC really was. And so did that LSU win to start the season. So if you're USC, what do you do? What do you do? Only thing that you can do right now is believe and hope and pray. You are like the Cleveland Browns with Deshaun Watson. You can't bench him. Look at the contract. You got to just stick with your guy, ride with him, believe in him, keep supporting, because that's your only option right now. Just say. Next game up, Michigan versus Illinois. Illinois, oh, good job, Illinois. Told you, if you didn't handle your business this game, you were dead to me for the rest of the year. But big ups on Brett Bielema, 21-7, huge win, great game plan. Luke Altmaier, 4th ranked win of the year. 4th. Let's think about this. Let's think about this because people are not going to want to give Illinois their props. But if Penn State, Oregon, Michigan, Texas, anybody else had 4 ranked wins this year, oh, everybody would be, even if they're not all ranked right now, oh, they would count them. They would count them. So Illinois has beat Michigan when they were ranked, Nebraska when they were ranked, Kansas when they were ranked as well. And now they get a chance to play Oregon this week in Autzen Stadium. I'm just saying. Luke Altmaier, good on you because this is a kid that we did not believe in last season. And now he's had probably one of the biggest glow-ups in college football. Now, I will say, though, this was a horrible uniform combination game. Horrible uniform combination game because Michigan was wearing their regular traditional uniforms, and then you had Illinois show up in these things, show up in these god-awful things. Oh, man, they found a way to go back to that in those NFL jerseys. Remember when the Packers were wearing them? Exact same thing, just different color combination. Or when the Bears wore it. This ain't it, fam. It just wouldn't. It just wasn't because if Michigan had been wearing the throwback old school uniform, yeah, it would have been great. But you had something new with something old. Stinky, stinky, stinky. But you know what else is stinky? Besides the uniform combination between those two games, was the quarterback play for Michigan. And you had Dave Portnoy from Barstool, who is already committed up to $3 million. And then they had another source say that they would give up to $1 million a year for NIL money to a Michigan quarterback. So Michigan is going to have a quarterback next year. He tweeted, I'm working on it. I'm working on it. And they got Michigan State this week. Michigan State's looking better. This looks like a game that could be hotly contested when it was looked to be a blowout. Then they got Oregon, who goes to the big house. That's probably going to be an L. Indiana could be an L, depending on if their quarterback is back or not. And then they got Ohio State left. We could be looking, they already got 3 losses. So we could be looking at a 6 or 7 loss team in Michigan. And all Michigan fans are going to hear is, oh, you're not so good when you don't have Connor Stallions on your side, are you? Not so good then. They're going to be talking cash trash. And it's right. It's fair. It's fair. You will earned it. But now I want to move on to. First of all, let me go back to the Illinois situation for a second because I want to give props to Illinois because they deserve it. Brett Bielema, who I criticized, and remember his first year when he talked trash about his players. My players aren't good enough, and I was like, coach better. Don't talk about them. You coach better. I was 100% right and justified in that. He got a little bit upset about it, but when you criticize people out loud, you should be just as vocal and boisterous when they do the right things. So good job on Brett Bielema. Good job on Luke Altmaier. Now, he only threw for 80 yards in this game, 9 for 18, but he took care of the football, which is what he's been doing. Illinois rushed for 187 yards in the game at about 5 yards a carry. And they held Michigan down, only 3 yards a carry running. Donovan Edwards has been, I don't know what's going on with him because the kid Khalil Mullings has been significantly better. I don't know whether it's the run plays that are being called. Donovan Edwards ended up on whether it's an NCAA cover curse. I don't know what it is, but something ain't right there. Now they started Jack Tuttle at quarterback. And he was 20 for 32. Best Michigan passing game of the year, 208 yards, 0 touchdowns, and an interception, though. So there were still missed plays, missed throws in that game. So it doesn't look like Tuttle is the answer so far, but at least they're putting up some level of passing yards in this game and trying to be aggressive. But big ups to Illinois. Big ups to this defense. Gabe Jacobs, great job. 13 tackles, 2.5 sacks. Dylan Rosiak. And these are guys that we both talked about in the preview show. So if you missed the preview show in any week, we tell you what's going to happen. Both of them do, and Matthew Bailey too. Mentioned all three of them. All of them, 11 tackles, 12 tackles, 13 tackles, 2.5 sacks. Come on, man. This is why you come to Unafraid Show. But now, though, we got to talk about the Heisman Trophy. The Heisman Trophy top 5 for week 8, baby. Things have changed. But things are still the same on some level. Now, number 5. This is a kid who fell off the list last week. And it was because you're not going to get a ton of credit when you lose a football game or when you're off and you're at Washington State. But John Mateer, 23 for 27 for 295, 3 touchdowns, and then added another 2 touchdowns rushing. What? 5 total touchdown game. We need to give the kid his flowers. We need to give him his flowers. If you have not watched John Mateer play, go watch John Mateer play. Just watch the highlights if you don't have time to watch a whole game. The kid is fan-damn-tastic, and he's got Washington State 6-1. Now, this is a good news, bad news situation for Washington State. Now, on one hand, John Mateer is balling. Absolutely balling. You got a great thing going. Bad part is John Mateer is balling. And he's only a sophomore. John Mateer's got 2 years to play college football. Could be 1, depending on if he ends up in NFL prospect. 2 more years. You lost your last quarterback to Miami. Well paid. Somebody is going to be paying John Mateer million or millions next year. It's not going to be Washington State. That's probably, but he may be a kid that's like, listen, they gave me an opportunity. I want to stay here. But listen, it's hard to turn down 2 comma money, bro. Especially when a team like Michigan needs a quarterback and they're willing to give $3-4 million. If you're John Mateer and you get that phone call and they're like, hey, yo, we got $2 million for you, you might be on that plane to Ann Arbor. I'm just saying. Number 2, Tyler Warren. Now, Penn State was off this week, so we got to go back to last week. 17 catches, 224 yards, and a touchdown. The kid has been doing everything for Penn State, playing quarterback, wildcat quarterback, tight end, jump ball guy, best wide receiver, everything. Give the tight end some love. Good job, Tyler Warren. Third on this list, Dylan Gabriel, over at Oregon. 21 for 25, 290 yards and a touchdown. Huge win in what could have been a letdown spot against Purdue. He's the leader of this team. And Dan Lanning called him a fire-breathing dragon. Yes, he ain't the biggest dragon in the whole world, but damn it, it's breathing fire. I've gotten a chance to be around him a little bit, and there is an intensity there. You can see it in his eyes. And yes, probably some of it is because he's not a big guy, because he's not tall. And there's a little of that, I'm a small guy, but I'm going to show y'all I'm about that action. I'm fiery. And then you put that in with a good football player too. Good job. Number 2. And honestly, at this point, it feels like a 2-man race for the Heisman Trophy. And that's Cam Ward versus Louisville. 21 for 32, 319 yards, 4 touchdowns. I don't believe that Miami, who is undefeated right now, they probably have 3 losses if you replace Cam Ward with Carson Beck. If you replace Cam Ward with, Quinn Ewers, they got 2-3 losses. It's just the reality. He's making special plays consistently. And my old tight end coach, Alfredo Roberts, who went to Miami, we always talk about NFL draft prospects and everything else. And he was like, so what'd you think about Cam Ward, buddy? Because, he poking his chest out. Now Miami good again. And I'm not sold on him as an NFL prospect. I think he's a fantastic college quarterback. But he's growing on me, though. Kid is growing on me. It's going to be hard to dispute this. And this could be one of these Jaden Daniels types glow-ups, because I always thought Jaden Daniels had the right mentality, the right skill set, but he wouldn't push the ball down the field at all. And then he did. And once he got that, it was on. And Cam Ward has not fully eliminated the Cam Ward experience plays where you're just like, Cam, where you just want to throw something at him. He hasn't fully eliminated those. But he's got him down significantly. And number 1, Ashton Jeanty, running back over at Boise State. He's been the list for a couple of weeks. And I can't wait to see him play next week, because good Lord. And should his team be piling up the stats? Probably, right? I might. But they play UNLV, which is another one-loss team. They're 6-1. They play at UNLV. So we will see what Ashton Jeanty is able to do. So he's got 126 carries on the season, 1,248 yards, and 17 touchdowns. So he has gone a tick below 10 yards a carry, like 9.9 yards a carry. But damn it, man, this is absolutely incredible. And if he can make a good push toward the end, and maybe Miami takes a loss, he might take himself home a trophy. Now I want to go back and talk about what should be the number 1 team in the nation. Should have been number 1 last week, and that is the Oregon Ducks. They traveled out to Purdue, and in what Joel Klatt, what Josh Pate, what all these other smart college football guys told you was a potential trap game. And they were like, ain't no trap around here, fam. Jumped out to initial 21-0 lead. And people were wondering, how come they didn't win by more? Because if you watch the game, Dan Lanning did something really, what I appreciated. There was like 4th and 1 situations. He attempted 2 field goals. Those are situations he would absolutely go for it around the 30-yard line. And he decided to go for it. He decided to kick field goals instead. Give the field goal kicker some work, because he knows that to win a college football playoff and a championship, field goals are going to be necessary. So he was thinking big picture. What happened on those field goals? 0 for 2. And now Oregon fans who are like have kicker trauma are like, oh, God dang it. It's another year we can't kick a damn field goal. But I do believe that he's got to instill some confidence in those kickers. So if I'm him, I continue to kick field goals in games that I'm in full control of because I got to get these guys reps. I got to figure out which one of these two guys I send out there. If I need a kick to win, who do I send out there? Legitimate question. And this Oregon offense, they look efficient. Um, they were moving the ball. Now they didn't run the ball at the highest clip, but I wasn't too worried about that because of the type of front that Purdue plays. They play a 5-down lineman front, and it makes it very difficult because there are no double team blocks. So it leaves the linebackers more free. It's just a lot different. But Dylan Gabriel was able to throw the ball over the yard. Evan Stewart showed up. Tez Johnson showed up again. And then I want you to pay attention because Terrence Ferguson, their star tight end, who's going to be an NFL draft pick, was out. He was sick. And Kenyon Sadiq, kid from Idaho. This kid's electric. Hell of an athlete. He came in and showed why he's the future of the position next season. But I did want to talk about something that happened in Alabama versus something that happened in Oregon. So in the Ohio State game, Trayshawn Holden, who is one of their starting wide receivers, he spit on one of the Ohio State cornerbacks. He gets kicked out of the game. And people ask Dan Lanning, what are you going to do about it? And he said this will be handled in-house. Trayshawn put up a nice apology to Ohio State, to the player he spit on, to the Oregon fans, to his teammates, everybody else did all the right things. So then you wondered, okay, what was going to happen this week? Well, you look on the game. Trayshawn Holden is on the sideline, got his towel around his neck, cheering like a mofo. I was like, that don't look like a player that's playing. Okay, we'll see. DNP did not play. Now they brought him just in case of an emergency. We not crazy. We not stupid. But he sat his butt on the sideline and watched the football game. Now that is what Kalen Deboer could have done to Malachi Moore after that incident. And then you know what? Them retweets from their freshmen might not have happened. So there's a difference in the culture and the mentality that you have to bring as a head coach. I'm not saying that you got to suspend players for everything that they do, but you do have to have a core principle of accountability. And that's got to get fixed over at Alabama. Oregon's doing a good job with it. And then you look at what they have coming in town this week. Oregon has Illinois coming in town this week, and we'll talk more about that this week. But I am excited to see if they can pass that Illinois test. It's not smooth sailing because there are no guaranteed wins, but they go to the big house the week after that to play Michigan, who's going to be unranked. And that should be a win. Then they play Maryland. That Wisconsin game, that's the one I'm looking at. And the Washington game at the end of the season. So there's no smooth way out of this thing. You just got to stay focused, one game at a time. And I believe this Purdue game showed that they can handle that level of success. Next game up, Nebraska versus Indiana. Lord have mercy. Kurt Singetti, I got to give you credit, baby. Great job, Kurt Singetti, over at Indiana. At Big Ten Media Day, he threw out some cuss words. People were like, yo, this guy's fiery. But they did get some bad news, though. Their quarterback, Curtis Rourke, is not expected to play this week per Pete Thamel and all the other insiders against Washington because of a thumb injury that he got in the Nebraska game. They said he will return this season, but the timetable is unclear. So Indiana, who's rolling, undefeated, they could end up having their season derailed over an injury. This is why you can never get too cocky. I'm not saying that Indiana was too cocky. I'm saying that teams that are rolling right now, like my Oregon Ducks, listen, anything can happen. You cannot get too overconfident. Just take one game at a time and line them up every week. But Dylan Raiola, I didn't like the promos that I think Fox was cutting about him, and not. I mean, obviously the promos were well done; they were fantastic. But in the voiceover on it, they called him Baby Mahomes. It's too much pressure for that young kid. He's finding himself. He's a good player. He's playing well. But this game, he absolutely struggled against Indiana. Threw a couple of picks. Just was not a great game. Missed some throws. And that's typical for freshmen. He's still on the right track. So, Nebraska, you can feel good about yourself. Everything's okay. You just got to get back on track next week. Um, BYU, they beat Oklahoma State in dramatic fashion, 38-35 into the game. Wild ending. BYU is gritty. They got no quit. But my eye test evaluation of them, they can't compete with the elites. Might they win the Big 12? Yes, because they are passionate, they are feisty, they just will not quit, won't go away. And when they get rolling, they can overwhelm you. But their quarterback, the BYU, and remember, I didn't name him this. He named himself this. There are t-shirts, everything else. If this BYU team was any other team, the way that they've been winning, they've been winning games like Tennessee has been winning. They've been winning games like other teams that are highly ranked have been winning. But I'm telling you, when you watch this team, I do not believe that they have the athletes to compete. But remember, in the Unafraid Show poll, so you might ask, George, why are they ranked so high in the Unafraid Show poll? Because it is based upon quality wins, schedule played, and dominance. Don't care about your roster. What are you putting on film? Now, I can think something else is going to happen to you, but we don't project, oh, I think this team is better. No. The algorithm, the Unafraid Show algorithm, does not process that sort of thing. And the last game up, there's another team that is completely unimpressive. They only got one loss. They keep winning. Their players, their quarterback Cook and wideout Noel, they both got hurt. Running back Noel. Both got hurt. Both came back. This is an average football team that is masquerading as a good football team. In Missouri, they got to get it together because this is now they might end up in the playoff as a one-loss team, but the reality of it is this is not a team worthy of or capable. Forget worthy, capable of winning a national championship. It's just not at this point in time. Now, do they still have time to start playing better? 100%. And that's the thing is you don't want to peak in the middle of the season. You want to peak toward the end of the season. Just get by, win, and play your best football when it matters the most. Now, over on the Auburn side, Hugh Freeze is wearing out his welcome. You got Auburn fans calling for Brian Harsin to come back. That's how bad the things have gotten. They want Brian Harsin to come back. Just saying. And the last thing that we have to talk about is the creeps. The absolute college football creeps. And you're like, George, what do you mean by creeps? I'm talking about the teams that are moving in silence. The teams that we are not talking about when we're talking about the national championship picture, when we're talking about the playoff. Yes, they may be mentioned in passing, but we're really not giving them the time and attention that they probably should right now because we're focused on the Oregon, the Ohio State, the Alabama, the Georgia, the Texas, all of Miami, all of them teams. We need to be giving Clemson some love right now because they're creeping. Now, have they been playing the toughest schedule? No. But they're knocking doors off, and they're playing well. And their quarterback, Cade Klubnik, another 300-yard, 3-touchdown performance in their 48-31 win over Virginia. Dabo is quietly doing work. Remember all the boo birds last year, including me, talking about Dabo? Not getting the job done. Does he need to hop in the portal? This and that and this and that. After they lost to Georgia, oh, should he be fired? Should he quit? All of this. Dabo is just quietly shutting people up. Now, is this schedule the toughest? No. No, it's not. But he's winning games, and they are being dominant. But we're not talking about them. The next creeper team, Notre Dame. They beat Virginia Tech 31-13. Now, Georgia Tech and their head coach, Brent Key, did not have their star quarterback, Hayes King, and it showed. It showed. But this Notre Dame team, since their Northern Illinois loss, they have showed that they're going to hang their hat on their running game and on their defense. Do you know what this team feels like to me? This feels like the 2000 Ravens with Trent Dilfer at quarterback. Riley Leonard is their Trent Dilfer. Do not expect 300-yard passing games. Do not expect 3 touchdown passing games. Don't expect none of that. Expect a couple rushing touchdowns, about 200 yards, not to throw interceptions. That's about it. That's what you expect out of Riley Leonard. But this Notre Dame team keeps creeping. Guess what? If the College Football Playoff started today, they would absolutely be in. Next creeper team, Texas A&M. Oh, they played Mississippi State 34-24. Now, this was a win. But the question is, I got the same question about this Texas A&M team that I did about Georgia last week. How did you let Mississippi State score so many points? They scored 31 points versus Georgia. Texas couldn't move the damn football. Mississippi State, 24 points. Now, the question is Mississippi State getting better or is the SEC overrated? That's my question. But Texas A&M, good job, and they're creeping. They are at the top of the SEC standings. That's how far they've crept. The next creeper team, Iowa State, 38-35, survive and advance. They beat UCF. It took them down to the wire. But you know what? They won. And if this was a team, we would be questioning it, but we'd be like, yo, they won though. Like, I know that Missouri almost lost to Vandy, but they didn't. They didn't. I know that Mississippi State scored 31 points on Georgia, but Georgia won. It's fine. Just survive in advance. And the last team up for the Creepers is the LSU Tigers. Oh, they beat Arkansas 34-10. That USC loss is a stain on the jersey. But Garrett Nussmeier, the rest of this team, doing work, continuing to win. We're not talking about them. But now they deserve some credit, some adulation, and some praise for what they're doing. So good job, LSU. You're doing your thing. And in the chat, everything, every week. More shows every week and more content. Make sure you get it. Peace out. Catch you guys tomorrow when you're back on the channel.